everyone, welcome to Let's Talk About Anything and Everything. Today, I have my brother Clay with me. He is currently attending Jacksonville University and pursuing a Master's of Science in Marine Science. I wanted to bring him in today to just ask him some questions about his major and why he chose it, and to also talk about some of the experiences he's had in his field of study. So ever since you were little, you've been interested in the ocean and marine life. Do you want to explain how that's influenced any of your academic decisions?
Yeah, so I guess the interest wasn't always in marine life as much as it was just animals in general. As a kid, Animal Planet, Steve Irwin was basically a god, I think, to me. The marine aspect of it didn't really develop until high school, when I turned into a bit of a beach bum, surfing before school, swimming, triathlons, whatever, just at the beach as much as I could be. So it was definitely kind of a later in life, I think, transition. So
Yeah, I wish I would have gotten more into that beach stuff with you because I sort of stayed away from that. So, how much of your decision on what you want to study stemmed from your passion for the ocean conservation? Do you think it's greatly influenced, your decision on what you want to study?
Oh, yeah. With my thesis or with my master's?
With your master's.
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk about both.
I would say the master's, both really are wholly influenced by my interest and I guess my urge to protect that ecosystem. I think people don't realize how important the ocean is. It is, 70% of our Earth. And I think a lot of people just kind of write it off because they can't see it and they don't understand it, so they don't care about it. But it's something that we damage more than the Amazon burning down. I mean, we're doing more dangerous things than that to the ocean every day, and no one sees it. So I definitely have a strong passion to protect that, and that pretty much drives every decision I've made over the last 4 years is how to best serve the ocean.
Yeah, and I think that's a large part of why I wanted to bring you on today is because not only because you're my brother and I believe in you and I think that you're very intelligent. I think that I think that you have a lot to say, and I think that you have such a passion for the ocean and preserving it for the future, and I think you have a lot of intelligent thoughts that a lot of people out there need to hear, and I think you just have a lot to say that deserves to be shared.
Probably too much to say, but I appreciate it.
Okay. So, are you happy with the major you chose? As far as coursework, are you enjoying all of your classes?
Oh, yeah. At Jacksonville University, my Master's in Marine Science is pretty much exactly what I could have hoped for. The classes are so much different than in an undergrad, which I think is of any grad school. It's just a totally different environment. A lot more of reading the literature and practicing exactly what you'll be doing as a scientist. I had an exam last week, and my whole exam was looking at pictures of a reef and identifying species on the reef. So the material has completely changed.
That's like an elementary school. It's like an elementary school puzzle when it's here's all the farm animal cutouts. Put the farm animals in, but
it did feel a little bit like that.
Obviously, it's more intensive, but that's the bait. Reminds me of the whole basics. Here's a
picture, and then he pointed at it, and he was like, "What is this animal?"
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more difficult when all the animals look like different kinds of rocks.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that question is, as far as are you happy with the major, is because it. Like me, you had a difficult time deciding exactly what it is you wanted to study, and you knew it had something to do with animals and the ocean, but you wanted to explore your options. So I just wanted to know if you feel as if you're in the right place and if you made the right decision.
Yes, definitely now I do. A couple of years ago, like Rebecca was mentioning, my conflict with school, a lot of that fell with towards the end of high school and the beginning of college. I played Ultimate Frisbee, kind of unrelated, but it's going to be related. Just let me get there. I had a couple of sports injuries a couple of years in a row, and each time there was a different PT process, you know, a new healing or whatever it was. And that therapy really interested me at the time of like, oh, well, my leg's broken, but my leg's healing, and working myself through that and seeing that therapy process was interesting. So for a while, I thought I was going to do orthopedics because I was told by my parents that I should be a doctor, and I felt like, yeah, that's a pretty cool thing to do. You can make a lot of money being a doctor.
You make them sound like they were like pushing you to be a doctor. Okay. They weren't like the parents that were like, you need to be a doctor.
No,
son.
They were like, Clay, your handwriting's really bad, and you do well in school, so why don't you go be a doctor?
They were like not trying to convince. They weren't like convincing him to be a doctor.
Oh,
they were just saying maybe he would be a good doctor.
Yeah, I don't want it to sound like that either. They weren't like pressuring me to be a doctor, but it was like, hey, we can't read your handwriting, so like you might as well, right?
Chicken scratch.
Yeah, exactly. So I could write a prescription, no problem. But my sophomore year, I shadowed the orthopedic that helped me with my broken leg, and realized I did not want to be a doctor. And at the same time, I learned who Sylvia Earle was. And anyone who doesn't know anything about the ocean and wants to see someone that has done a lot for it and is continuing to, even though she's an old lady, look up Sylvia Earle. Like right now, go to Netflix, type in Mission Blue, go take 2 hours off of whatever you're doing and get educated.
She's a cool old lady.
Oh yeah, she's Energizer Bunny of an old lady. She's still scuba diving in her late 80s. So...
Yeah, I definitely want to get around to reading one of her books, and I do seriously mean that. So I'm going to get there at some point. I will read one of her books.
When I get free time. I forgot what free time was.
Well, I just bought him one for Christmas.
She did. I got 50 pages in before the semester started, and I have not done much else.
So let's see if he finishes that. Maybe he'll lend it to me. So continuing on. As far as being at JU and pursuing your master's degree, how would you compare it to when you were at University of South Florida studying to earn your bachelor's? Are the classes like more intensive at JU?
Yeah, I think they were equally intensive in their different rights. Because for my undergraduate, like I said, I went in wanting to be an orthopedic. So I took really heavy anatomy and chemistry courses and kind of gearing myself up for med school. But junior and senior year was when I made that swap, and I started taking ecology and marine biology and like, you know, the different sciences that I'm doing now. But undergrad, the testing is definitely a lot different. I would say it was more intense in like, remember this information and regurgitate it back next week on your exam.
It's not like you're learning. It's more of like memorization skills and
yeah.
And it's such a broad. You're taking such a broad range of classes because in undergrad you also have your general education courses too, and a lot of that like doesn't apply to your interests and whatnot. So
yeah, like Intro to Humanities, my first semester of college was my second to lowest grade in college. Shout out to organic chemistry for being my lowest grade in college.
You know what? My medieval humanities class is actually the highest grade I've ever gotten in a college course.
You're in the wrong field then. Go be an anthropologist.
No, thank you. But I just did really well in that class. I don't know why.
I wish. Humanities and I were not good friends.
I didn't really like it. I just did well in it. I'm not sure why. But
yeah, definitely both intense, but very different. Yeah. Grad school's a lot more writing, I think. Definitely a lot more writing.
Yep. So, would you say you're enjoying it more because all the classes you're taking are focused solely on your field of study?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, and even some that I didn't expect, that aren't really truly focused. Like one of my requirements was geology, marine geology, which, I mean, you know, rocks, right? So who really likes rocks? Turns out rocks are really cool.
I like rocks.
Yeah, I mean, like...
I have a rock collection.
You do. It's small, but she does have a rock collection, I can confirm. So, I mean, geology, it sounded interesting, but I really did enjoy it a lot. I mean, I think part of that is just kind of the way grad school is I guess, formed or done,
Yeah.
kind of suits my learning style more. And I feel like I can apply myself easier and better in that environment. So,
I get that. So, right now you're working on your thesis with Dr. Dan McCarthy, who is a professor at JU, and you've had 2 classes with him, or 2 courses?
yeah, I'm currently in my second.
Okay. And you're studying worm reefs on the southeast coast of Florida. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your thesis?
Yeah, so first of all, like you said, worm reefs. I'm sure most people are like, what in the heck is a worm reef?
Yeah, I did a little research, but I will admit I'd never heard of a worm reef.
Yes, and I can probably guarantee that 99% of you do not know what a worm reef is. I didn't know what a worm reef was until Dr. McCarthy was so enthusiastically talking about them last semester. So it turns out there's these little guys, a couple inches long, and they settle on rocks, and they secrete a glue, and they stick sand from the water to their bodies, and they make their own rocks from sediment, and they live on the beach. And from Cape Canaveral, our Florida population's from Cape Canaveral to Jupiter Beach. We have a lot of these worm reefs. And then there's actually more of them in the Caribbean. There's still some reefs kind of being found. And then there's a couple on the northeastern coast of Brazil. But there's just these little worms that millions of them built these gigantic reefs that host all kinds of fish, and baby green sea turtles love them. So
I love turtles.
yeah, they're really cool.
That's cool. So why did you choose that particular study for your thesis?
So something that's been interesting to me since I got into marine biology was food webs. I love who's eating who gets their energy from where, things like that. And especially because what drove me to the ocean was how we're basically taking a poop on it. Can I say poop on a podcast?
You can on this one.
All right, we're going to let poop go. So the way we're taking a poop on it, I wanted to incorporate both of those things at the same time. And the worms are filter feeders. And an important thing in Florida especially is all the crap we throw in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So fertilizer from golf courses, sewage from septic tanks. All these things make their way out into the water. And these little guys that are just kind of eating up whatever's in the water are possibly eating our poop and eating our golf course fertilizer. In this project, we're going to be looking at the diets of the worms, and we're going to be looking at them in Florida's dry season and the wet season, and we're going to see just how bad, or if we are affecting their diet at all. And hopefully that'll be an important question for conservation and future research on the reefs.
Right. So they play an important part in the ecosystem, and their diet. If they are ingesting like fertilizers and stuff, could that lead them to like extinction? Is that what you're getting at? Or
it could. So something with these worms is that they have about a 1-year lifespan. They settle in like winter to early spring time, and then they reproduce late summer to fall, and then they have another big settlement event. So it's a yearly thing. Every year they require more larvae to come in and settle, or the reef will just whittle away. So an important thing to keep in mind is if we're messing with their food, because every year if we're messing with their food and they come in one year and they settle, and then all of a sudden we're putting all these things into the water column that they're eating, or we've now like harmful algal blooms. We've all seen it in the news now. You've seen the red tides, the brown tides, the fish kills, all that. And it's very possible that these are things that are making their way to these worm reefs. So hopefully this project will help us see the extent of which we're possibly doing that.
Okay, cool. I like that. So are you interested in doing the research because there hasn't been much research done on them, and you'd like to discover more about the reefs?
Yeah, there's a decent amount of research on the ecology on the reefs, but no one has really done any explicit work directly on the worms as far as what they eat. We know their biology and kind of how they reproduce and when they reproduce and how they grow and whatever, but no one's looked at specific diets, especially diets in an area impacted by human runoff. So this will kind of be the first of its kind, I think, in a way, and hopefully used as a reference in similar areas.
Okay, so you sound like you have like a really good general idea of what you want to study in the thesis. How is it developing? Like, how is it coming along? Are you guys making any progress, or are you Are you still in the beginning stages? Or
definitely still beginning stages. We pretty much have our study design down. We have most of our sampling sites down. We've worked out the instruments I'm going to be using to look at my results. The only things left to really figure out is statistics. I'm kind of dragging my feet on reading about statistics, unfortunately, because they're not very fun. But for the most part, it's developing pretty well. My advisor actually brought some worm rock, is what it's called, back to his lab today. So
that's
this week,
they form.
Yeah, they form what worm rock with air quotes, for you people listening, and so I'll be playing with that this week to kind of figure out what they look like, because I've never seen one in the flesh. Get to cut them open, look at their stomachs, whatever. So
cool. All right, so you did an internship in Key West at Moats International Center for Coral Reef Research and Restoration. Do you remember when that was?
Yeah, I moved down there in July of 2018, and I came home in April of 2019.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Moat, and did you enjoy the internship because it was more closely related with your interests, and what did you learn while you were there?
So Moat is really cool. There's if you look up Moat, the first thing you'll find is their big Sarasota campus. They have a lot of cool disease and reproduction and manatee stranding stuff going on there. But explicitly in the Keys, they call it the IC2R3, if you see that on the website. They do a lot of coral restoration, so they have a restoration army pretty much in the summer of a bunch of undergrad kids go down, and they take the corals, and there's a process called microfragmenting, where if you cut the corals up into tiny little pieces, they grow really fast. So you can take a coral about an inch across, you cut it into 40 pieces, and then these 40 pieces turn into a coral that's an inch across in a month or two, which in the field to grow that much coral would take maybe 100 years. So they're doing some really cool work with these big reef-building boulder corals, where they're essentially re-skinning dead corals with new living coral, and they're hoping that the corals grow back together and basically rebuild the biomass on the reefs. So
awesome. And then for anyone who wants to do some research on Moat, it is MOTE, I believe.
Not like a castle moat.
Yes, it's a different kind of moat. So, all right, I think we're all done here. So, thank you for sitting down with me. I feel like it was nice for us to have a chance to talk about career and school stuff, because being siblings, we don't always get into this stuff with each other. It's more him trying to kill me or making fun of me.
That's more of when we were 13 than it is now. But okay. There was definitely a time for that.
But he still makes fun of me.
She makes fun of me more.
So this was cool, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time.